This week we're going to be covering landlords fleeing the market, mortgage rates falling, and Labour is trying to reshape the housing market. So what with all those different conflicting and strange things going on, what is going to be the outcome? Sources are the Telegraph this week. So where does the market go from here? Okay, landlords' purchases have plunged to record lows. Just 9.6% of all homes were bought by landlords in January, the lowest since records began in 2009. The Labour's Renters' Rights Bill, expected this summer, will ban no-fault evictions, Section 21, and tighten rental regulations, pushing many landlords to exit. So that's rattling a lot of people. Is it a bigger deal? Frankly, if you look after your tenants and you have them vetted properly, personally, I don't think so, but that's not always the case. Now, rental supply is down 39% since 2019, and rents have surged 8.7% in the last year. So it's putting more pressure on tenants. So it's a completely mixed message bag of what we've got. It's all very strange what's going on. And it's not really being, there's no solution in sight, I don't believe. So what else is happening? Evictions are surging ahead of rental reforms. So landlords are moving fast. There were 7,781 evictions recorded in the first 3 months of Labour's tenure, which is a 20.3% increase year on year. Possessions claims topped 30,000 in 2024 as landlords act before the new regulations come in. Some landlords are shifting to short-term lets. I mean, I've got to say, I do some of that myself up in the northeast, and you pay a big fee for it, but the places are kept tip-top, and as long as you monitor them properly, you do get a good value for money. Just be very careful about it. If you're doing Airbnb, I think Airbnb can be more of a problematical thing, but it's a short-term holiday lets that works quite well. Okay, what's happening with mortgages? Mortgage rates have dropped below 4%. How about that? Nationwide has cut its rates on 2, 3 and 5 year fixed rates by up to 25 basis points effective last Friday. The new rates start at 3.99%, but it's for their own customers who are remortgaging. So it's not for new customers. Mortgage rates are falling as the swap rates drop, but experts warn that sub 4% deals may not last long, especially for shorter term fixes. Okay, so you should get out in the market now and try and see if you can find something that's worth getting on board with at that sort of price point. What's going on in the housing market as far as construction? Taylor Wimpey reports strong demand as Labour is getting all its plans together. The FTSE 100 home builder had seen robust demand so far in 2025 with affordability improving. Labour aims to fast-track housing approvals, unlock green belt development, boost supply. Again, that's going to be a bit of a NIMBYism situation, but Taylor Wimpey is saying based on what they've seen so far this year, they're expecting to sell 10,800 homes in 2025, up from 9,800 last year. That's still way below the 15,000 they did in 2021. Moving on to Bank of England. Capital Economics are suggesting that the bank rate will fall to 3.5% by early 2026, despite inflation set to rise to 3.7% later this year. The Bank of England is suggesting that slowing wage growth and a weaker labour market will bring inflation back to target. Markets expect 2 rate cuts in 2024, but with inflation risks looming, will the bank be forced to rethink? They've got to keep the economy going, as we've covered quite a few times in the market wrap. You know, the economy is not exactly great guns at the moment, and it needs to be fixed, and cutting interest rates is one of those ways of doing that. That's where we're at really for this week. Landlords are pulling out of the market. What does that mean to us as expatriates? I have seen no weakness from our clients buying in the UK. You know, why are you buying? Most people buy as expatriates to create pension income, to create income for the future, for their children, to make their money work harder, to diversify, all those sorts of things. And if you're looking at those sort of diversification topics, then property is very good. If you're not after that, and you're after being a landlord because that's what you've always done, then perhaps you are feeling a bit miffed by it all and you've had enough. I think if you look around the marketplace and see what other sorts of buy-to-let property is out there, there's a lot of possibilities. You know, there's some good HMO, houses of multiple occupancy creators out there who can manage a property. There's a lot of good student-built purpose-built student accommodation that's out there. That's well worth doing. So although landlords are pulling out in the pure side of the market, we're not looking at other extra parts like holiday lets and so on and so forth. Evictions up, what did you really expect? You know, people are trying to get people out before it's too late. But frankly, my own experience has been, if you treat people correctly, you look after them well, then, you know, a bottle of whiskey on their birthday, flowers on their birthday, cards for the kids, that sort of stuff. If you treat them well and they stay an extra 4 or 5 months, they will look after you well, and that's that's the key to it. So I think evictions for sure, but then also what sort of property are you buying? Buy a proper property that's going to show respect to your tenants when you try and rent it out, and they will show respect to you. Mortgage rates dropping, that's good news. How long it will continue for, we don't know, but that's very positive and very good, and it makes affordability much better, which is what Taylor Wimpey are seeing. The Bank of England will cut rates because it has to keep the economy going. So, questions for the last few weeks. Okay, from Matt Wilco. Your inflation definition seems to miss out the most important one. The Bank of England is printing money to service government spending. Absolutely. When you've got £80 billion worth of debt or whatever it is, you've got to print money to pay it off, and also you've got to inflate the currency to make it worth less so you can pay it off better. I agree completely, Mac Wilco. Thank you very much for that comment. I should have picked that up. Skara Vilioga. I've got a mortgage to buy to lets in November, looking for a better deal by going to is it better to go to the mortgage company myself, or is it better to go through the broker? First port of call should always be your existing mortgage provider. See what they're willing to do to keep you as a client, because as you rightly say, you go to a mortgage broker, quite often you're going to see them trying to move you into something else to get commission on your deal. So go to Mortgage Works first and speak to them. I agree, it's not worth it for some of these mortgage brokers. And you say, if Morgan Stanley predicts there are 4 rate cuts by the end of the year and interest rates go down 3.5%, will that massively affect the buy-to-let rates on offer now? I don't think so, no, because I don't think it's going to go down by that much. And they're already pricing it into the market, so they're already saying these are the rates we're offering, so get on board now. So I think you're better off just going for it before the end of the not immediately, but before the end of the year, before your extension, and go to your mortgage provider, ask them first rather than going to a broker. Lurch Lures says, as a child of the 70s in the UK, I remember seeing tins of food in our village shop with 2 or 3 different price labels on them. Goods often had to be repriced twice before going on the shelf and going out the door. Yeah, inflation in those days, 12-15%. It was crazy stuff. But we didn't know any better. And because the world of mass communication was not around then, people didn't talk about it so much. There's always been a lot of these problems around, but no one really knew about them because, I grew up in Whitby, and in Whitby we didn't have, I didn't have a TV. I had a TV till I was 8. So we didn't see the outside world. You didn't use the phone because it was too expensive. My man would tell me off for doing so. So nowadays we're seeing the same thing, but everyone's reporting it. Shrinkage on the size of foods. We never really noticed it before. No one talked about it. But I agree, it's crazy. But imagine what it must be like in somewhere like Argentina, where it's going up by that amount. Okay, so that really is just about it for this week. It was short and sharp. Just some top notes as to what's going on. Landlords are pulling out. They are if they're pure landlords, I think. But if you're trying to build a pension, it's a great idea to jump in. Evictions are going ahead, at standard. Mortgage rates are dropping. Taylor Wimpey are saying perhaps things will get better, and the Labour government will overhaul planning and things will be all right. Happy days. Now, don't forget to get a chance if you can, and get a copy of our book. Okay, it's a ripping read. It'll definitely put you to sleep if you can't sleep, and if you want to stay awake, it'll keep you awake as well. It's everything to everyone. Thank you very much. Take care. Cheerio.